to Reflections in the Dark.
Thank you for having me back, guys. Yes, I think I've heard that a time or two, that Banana Boat song.
Well, it just is what it is. But Stan, you've been here before. Most of the people probably listening know who you are. If they don't, they probably have just never been introduced to you, or they're new to it, because we've acquired a lot of new listeners over the years. But you didn't start out in the whole prophecy, end time scenario. You started out as an actual, real, honest to goodness scientist and researcher, correct?
Yes, I did training at IBM in Dallas into systems and large systems operations, systems programming, and about 6 languages there. And then did private research in ways to get alternate energy and make a flying saucer. And was recruited to the Dr. Sellers Group.
Isn't it amazing how all of that fit right into where we are in history, and then eschatology and everything else? Everything that you were studying beforehand applies now.
I know. The Lord works in mysterious ways, and I do often think back over my life and think, wow, it was really a blessing to have all these things happen and to be able to live in this time and use the information to help folks.
I'm of the belief that since he orders our steps, and I know some people say what I'm going to go into now is predestination, but he knows the end from the beginning. And I think in certain cases, he sends an angel, even himself, kind of just gently nudges us towards a specific path on which we either meet the right person or pick up the right experiences. And then somewhere down the road, you look back and go, oh, that's why I met that person, or that's why I learned that information. But if you listened to the show last week, folks, I mentioned that I start every morning when I do all my research after I'm done praying, because I start my day with the Lord. And StanDeyo.com is where one of the first places I'll head, because he and Holly are, I think, one of the best at accumulating what's going on in the world at that moment and in that week. So, Stan, our theme has been 2013, what's coming. If I just say to you, Stan, what's coming, what's the first thing you think of?
I guess the first thing would be probably an economic chaos in the United States, possibly at the same time or very close to that, civil disorder, the roots of revolution over the gun grab things and various other mechanisms that the White House has put into play and will put into play to cause us to revolt. They want us to be, up in arms and storming the Bastille so they can put us down and put into place a new world order once they've made America weak from inside. So I think this year we're going to see several things. The start will be probably in the Middle East, which will trigger economic problems as well as the internal problems we've got here. But the Iranian nuclear threat to Israel and the declared intent of destroying it means that we will probably see within the next 2 or 3 months a flare-up which could drive us to the edge of World War III, if not right into it. I'm looking at prophecy and saying that may not happen till the end of the tribulation, but certainly we're going to think we're at that door, and that will create chaos in the world economies.
Well, I'm sure you know that President Obama is making his first trip to Israel, and he will be in Jerusalem on March 20th. That's the scheduled date, which also happens to be the date in the Jewish calendar that Yeshua entered Jerusalem on the back of the donkey, and I do not believe that that's a coincidence. So
I know, he's arriving at Purim.
Yes. Do you think that is going to be a harbinger of something? I have my theories. I've made the mistake of sharing it with some people and gotten them a little frightened or a little concerned. But do you think that between that trip, the Pope's resignation, the new Pope, Netanyahu, for some bizarre reason, giving the Vatican the entire second floor of a building on Mount Zion for their archives, and then the seat on the council above the tomb of David, all of that, I believe, ties together. Do you believe March is going to be an explosive month for us?
You mean beware the Ides of March?
Well, yes, literally.
Well, It could well be. There are a number of issues that we don't know when Netanyahu is going to be forced into action that come to play in March. The estimated, or at least the publicly estimated, time for the completion of a viable nuclear strike system from Iran is, the deadline is March, and it may have already passed, and they may be getting ready to make an attack, stage attack perhaps, on Israel from not only Iran but from Syria, maybe from Damascus, which does beg the question what happens to Damascus overnight, one night that it is no more and becomes a ruinous heap. All those things do look like they could occur within March, April, between now and Pesach.
It's also interesting that March 20th is the spring equinox, and in the satanic world, that's a high holy day that demands blood sacrifice. So I would probably expect some kind of rise in terrorist activity, or maybe nothing. I mean, the interesting thing about all this, we are discussing it, and it could happen, it couldn't happen, but the signs seem to be blinking. Alert, alert, alert. Speaking of alerts, meteors. What's going on with all the meteors and suddenly appearing in the sky?
You mean the bright flashes over various parts of the world, China, California,
yes.
and Russia? Well,
yeah,
you've got to
they've
understand
continued.
there was no connection, you understand, between the DA-14, 2014, and 2012, and the other things that came afterwards and before. But as far as I'm concerned, that's hooey. There was a lot of debris in the orbit of this comet that passed so close to us, and we're still getting hits from it even today, from
yes.
Small pieces that broke off. Now, I don't know why they would want to turn the public eye in some other direction. I really can't see the value of it, but they are doing everything they can to tell us that it was one of the most unusual coincidences, highly improbable, that two would strike in the same 24 hours, and certainly all the rest of them in the last 4 days. But yeah, there are things like this that are quite frightening out there to people that study the stars, professionals, because they can't see them. Even with infrared telescopes, if the body moving in space is cold enough, they're not going to pick it up. And it sneaks up on us until we get it on optical scopes. Even with image intensifiers, we don't see it all the time, and then suddenly there it is on your doorstep, and whammy. There are at least 500, maybe more, large asteroids floating around out there. They estimate statistically, and from other patterns of meteors from the asteroid belt right on down to where we are, that there are others out there. There's 500 others that are large enough to do us damage, but they don't know where they are.
I got to say this too. Listening to the conversation and all of us talking, in the world right now, if you're not spiritual, or if you're somebody that doesn't believe in, say, scripture or the coming of the end and all that stuff, surely there's a lot going on that should be of an alert to somebody who's not a believer, or somebody who doesn't think that just by what is happening politically, what is happening with the atmosphere, with the asteroids, like you said, the meteors, all these things. But Stan, my question to you is, along with all this madness that's going on, whether it's political, whether it's, strange, bizarre incidences that happen with the wildlife, everything. I mean, you name it, we can make a whole list from now until next week. What about, running parallel to all this, the consistent UFO sightings that have been reported all around the world? And a lot of it has probably, I'd say, November, December, all the way till now. There's been many, many reports if you look at the data banks, and even as well as in Israel. What is your take on that? Where is this all becoming a play with everything else that's happening? Is it all connected somehow, or is it just way out there in left field and we're just getting bombarded with a bunch of things? What is the agenda from this point on?
All right. Joe, several things have to happen in the current environment to bring the world to a one-world government. Now, this you don't have to speak prophecy to see this. The one-world government has been spoken of from the time of Bush and even before that, but certainly from the White House from the time of Bush and forward. They are moving toward making a unified planet, which I have no objection to a unified planet under the proper guidance, like, in my opinion, Jesus Christ being the king of the planet and running it because he knows how to make everything work instead of trying to do it by trial and error. Now, anyway, having said that we're headed toward that world government from a secular point of view, world point of view, several things have to happen to bring the peoples, the religions, the cultures, the political structures of 196 nations together and get them to agree on this common government, a common economy, common defense, everything. The Hindus, the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims, the Buddhists, there are going to be people tugging in every direction from the religious factions about how the laws should be and how this whole new world order should be run. To overcome that is going to take a grand deception. And funnily enough, biblical scripture in the New Testament does speak about a grand deception occurring, huge deception, biggest in the history of man, in the end times, which I think we're in. But even if you don't think that, here's what political structures behind the scenes planned back in the late 40s, early 50s. And that is this. The League of Nations and the United Nations had at that time both proven that we could not get multiple nations and religious bodies and cultural differences to come together to agree on whether to paint a street sign yellow or red, something simple as that. Can't get them to agree on simple things, much less a world government, a world economy. Hitler had proven in World War II that by force you could not hold the world hostage and run it like a fiefdom. It just didn't work because the French resistance proved that they could keep breaking down things, bridges, bombs, and fuel dumps and that kind of stuff, and so cripple a tyrannical government that it wouldn't be practical. There would be uprisings. So I felt, well, is there a third alternative? By peace we can't do it. By force we can't get the people to agree. And the idea was struck upon, why don't we have a fake alien invasion? We'll hide technology, we'll build an underground base and under ice and underwater bases, and we will build a fake alien race, come back in years to come, and threaten the Earth with annihilation or with our help, depending, how they want to do it. We can just walk off while they're in the middle of a nuclear war and weather catastrophes and food shortages and let them die in their own mess, or we can offer them a world government like, quote-unquote, we the aliens have organized in our worlds, and it'll be like Star Trek, and it'll be the United Earth for the Federation, and everything will be happy times if you just agree to follow our model. That way we can coerce the peoples and the religions and cultures of the world into agreeing to try this new world government for a period of time until suddenly they realize it works, and we won't have all the resistance from the various viewpoints. To overcome the religious biases, we're going to have some sort of a commander of this alien force that can convince them that he's either from the source or the source of all these legends about the Messiah and the prophets and, God and this kind of stuff. Well, now, this is what this group was planning to do in the late 40s. At the same time, there was an alleged, and I think it was real, crash at Roswell in 47 of a flying saucer. At least one there, one further down the track. There were alien bodies in it. I've talked to family members of one of the pilots that actually flew some of the bodies back to Fort Worth. So, in my opinion, it's not alleged. They were really there. A short time later, in the early 50s, mankind, and I say mankind meaning most of the Western world, not China so much, but the European nations, NATO, United States, a lot of the Western world Axis powers had joined together to make this private underground technological development so that they could make this grand deception about a fake alien landing. And when they realized that we did have little gray critters and tall gray critters here, they decided that maybe they could join with them, hold them at bay, develop our technology to protect ourselves for real, but also work with them in an effort to use them to bring the world's nations together into a happy world government. And our human people involved in that, I'm sure, were thinking, well, if we can make a deal with the aliens to make the pitch to the other nations, it'll be for real. We won't have to do it by ourselves. And, hey, if we do cooperate with them and make a treaty now, we can be in the new world government and carve out a place for ourselves. Well, that's the way it started in the 50s. And there was a National Security Directive, number 5412, which did set up the advisory board of 12 gentlemen at the time to oversee the development of these technologies we were getting from the aliens, the alleged aliens, and to be sure that the aliens didn't overstep their boundaries. Now, where I part from this secular view is that I am positive that these alleged aliens are manufactured like cyborgs, half biological, half machine, electronics, whatever, more advanced than ours, and that they're like soulless computers with a job to do, and by our comparison, a very, very big intellect, and that they were created by beings that look like us, maybe slightly taller and healthier, but humans, and these are the fallen ones spoken of in the ancient Sumerian records, the Watchers, part of the Watchers, and also the fallen ones that followed Satan in the Judeo-Christian context. Now, why would they create these little gray critters and the tall gray critters, put them in flying saucers, contact man, make a deal to work underground, develop underground bases all over the planet, hide the technology from the people of Earth, and to set up this one world government in concert? Why would they do this? Why didn't they just come in and tell us what they were going to do? Why didn't Satan or Lucifer, or whoever the head of this organization is, why didn't he just do that? The reason is they were cast down and are being cast down to our level of the universes, from a parallel universe to our universe. They didn't get the technology with them. They were cast out. And when they were cast out, they had minimal technology getting through the portals that opened up all over the planet in the atmosphere, because Satan is, according to the old records, his domain, his principality is the air. And somewhere at a certain altitude up in there, I think there's probably a way to make a portal gate from God's universe to our universe, and perhaps one level down to home, to hell. But anyway, what they did is they had to come here and to recruit mankind to help them build a manufacturing complex or complexes underground and hidden bases all over the planet, so that Satan and his people could build weapons and transport and technology they need to fight the Messiah, the true Messiah, Jesus, when he comes through the portal and announces his presence here to take his throne back and the title deed to earth. Now, I have to mix Bible and secular together here, because we're getting into areas that are just so much current events that you have to see where they tie into prophecy to really get a grasp of what's going on. So Satan and his people wanted to use mankind to develop infrastructure so that to a point where they could mine their own minerals, do their own electronics, make their own weaponry, make their own transports, underground, underwater, in space, whatever. And as soon as they were through with humans, they would then disengage themselves from us, kicking us out of these bases and cutting us off. And there was no need for them to even let any humans be involved in the government that they're planning for the whole world. Well, in the late 70s, the group that I worked for, I was recruited by Dr. Edward Teller's group. These people were the humans involved in cooperating with the fallen ones, alleged aliens, to build these bases and the technology for them. In the late 70s, after I'd left the group, the humans were kicked out in numerous battles across the planet, underground, underwater, under ice caps, whatever. They were kicked out of our bases, and the bases were fully then under the control of Satan and those who follow him. Since that time, they have, I'm sure, exponentially developed technologies they will need to fight the Messiah when he comes through the portal from the heavens, the upper universe. The world leader of this time will probably be a human or humanoid before, Satan probably takes him over completely. But there's going to be a human at the head of the world government. I'm sure of this from reading in the book of Daniel and translating just 8 verses, a very fastidious, tedious way of translating that I've developed. And it's a way to find the colloquial meanings and the in-depth meanings of various languages used in the book of Daniel to get an accurate translation as though you were standing in front of Daniel at that time and understood all of his colloquial references. Now, in that, it does speak of a man, a human, that will be making a deal with an, quote, alien God. And there's no mistake about it. It doesn't mean a God that doesn't belong in Israel. It is an alien God, full stop, period. And this alien God is coming to earth posing as a God, the OG God. And it says in the book of Daniel that he will put himself above even the God of gods. Now, biblical scholars have stumbled over this particular phrasing, which I went to great lengths to retranslate in the latest edition of Cosmic Conspiracy. And basically it goes like this. There's a phrase in there which says, talking about the world leader under Satan's guidance, that he will put himself above the God of gods, above the desire of women, and above every other god. Now, okay, what does being above the desire of women have to do with being above the God of gods and every other god? They couldn't figure it out. The translators over the years have thought, well, maybe it's going to be gay or something, a eunuch. We don't know. If you look at what Daniel was saying, remembering that he was raised until he was a teenager in the court in Jerusalem, he knew that the desire of the women of Israel, the mothers of Israel, was to be the mother of the Messiah that was to come. The desire of women was to be the mother of the Messiah, Son of God. So when you understand that and then go back and reread what Daniel wrote in a book that was sealed by God, to be opened up and understood now, you see that simple phrase there said, he puts himself above the God of gods, the Son of God, and every other God. And all those things are equal type structure in grammatic terms, talking about God, Son of God, and other gods. This guy, this ruler of the world, to gain control of the religions and the cultures, and convincingly, must have help from Satan and those who follow him. And I am sure that this year, with the increase in sightings we're seeing, that we are at the doorway for them making their presence known officially. This cannot happen until the people of the earth want help. To drive them to that point, the press has been accentuating, problems we've got, like with the food prices, with storm and climate change and threat of meteor strike, and a number of issues have been accelerated ahead of time to try to get the people to wake up that we've got a crisis. And these crises are real and developing. They're not to the point of extinction the people of the planet yet, but they are driving the people to want someone to solve the problem. How do we shield the earth? How do we stop this nuclear war, which is we're about to get to the edge of it in the Middle East over the Iran-Israel crisis? When the people of the world are thinking, if someone doesn't step in now, if God doesn't come now, the earth is destroyed and us with it. At that point, I think we will see the official announcement, the arrival of Satan and his crews on their ships with their technologies, and much like the movie V back in the 70s, they have made ships that are huge. Mile in diameter is not a problem with anti-gravity. Not a problem at all. And they will park over cities in various places, I'm sure, just like in the movie, and say, we mean you no harm, we come in peace. We're messengers of light. Angels of light, I think the Bible calls them, but still, that's what it's about. And I think this year we're going to see that ushered in. We're approaching when all these curves come to a head and frighten the life out of every human being that can think.
Amazing. I'm sitting here listening, and Stan, you can confirm you probably don't even know I wrote a book, so you haven't read it, but you just lifted a section of the book where I talked about the fallen. And my major theory that I'm now going to expand upon is that when they got kicked out of heaven and cast down into what I call the heavenlies, that atmospheric realm you referred to, they got disconnected from the throne room. They lost all of their mojo, their power, except for their supernatural minds. Therefore, they had to get mankind to help them regain that power through building the technology. I think the Tower of Babel was a dry run. And now we are where we are in history, where everything that they needed to make their move is in place. And I just paraphrased some of what you just said. That's a large section of my theory of the fallen, the watchers, and the spirit of the Nephilim, which I believe are the demons that are active right now in society.
Right.
So many things have to happen before everything you just described, which was like the first, second, and third season of the X-Files all in one. And it's funny, before you came on, I've been just paying attention to what's going on. And as we know, this is Academy Awards night, and all day long, all that's been on TV has been Hollywood, 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 stars, stars, stars. None of what's going on in the world. And the control of the fallen, I believe, in Hollywood, to use that as a dissemination device to indoctrinate, to prepare the people over the last 50 or 60 years, has brought us to the place we are now. So in regard to that, everything you just said, it's going to take them a little while to, A, disarm America, because if they try to do quickly what they're talking about now, we will have one of the worst civil wars this planet has ever seen. So they're going to have to it's going to take them a little time, don't you think, to break us down to that point?
No, I'm going to disagree with you there, and here's why.
Okay.
Logically, just logic. The situation in the Middle East with Iran and Israel is to the point where Israel is going to have to make some kind of action to defend itself. Now, whether it does it or whether someone else does it to make it look like Israel did to start the conflict doesn't matter. Maybe Damascus will be melted down or whatever. Russia has bilateral defense agreements, more on their side than the others, in the Middle East with several countries, Iran, Syria, and others, to defend them in the event that they are attacked by a foreign force. Now, Russia will not go down and help Iran to destroy Israel or invade Israel unless Russia can be fairly well convinced that its major enemy in this effort would be the United States, and that the major enemy has been neutered. Now, here are the time factors. We are approaching the next maybe 60 days when the clock strikes midnight, and it's time for the Israelis to strike against the Iranians. Before that happens, or as it happens, Russia has got to be assured that America cannot interfere with Russia's defense and attack on Israel, its defense of Iran attack on Israel. That means that in the United States, we have to be in chaos here, whether it be by terrorist attack, whether it be by civil war, revolution over the gun control and various other things that are just so bad coming out of the White House, or some other factor. America has to be divided, a house divided, so it cannot stand against foreign enemies, and the people of America won't even be interested in helping anybody over in Israel or whatever, because they'll have their own problems at home. That means that things will have to happen rapidly this year and in the first half of the year, I believe. I mean, we're approaching that moment where all the pieces are coming together, forcing the timing. And if you recall, Jesus does mention the fact that at the end times, it will be like the travail of a woman in labor. Right. She will have, the contractions are closer and closer together. The Braxton Hicks contractions all form together and form the massive one for the birth. Right at the end, everything just comes bang, bang, bang. And that's what we're seeing now. Things under the Obama administration in the United States have been happening so quick that my jaw drops every week when I read the news. How can it be this quick? So when you say you think it will take longer, the reason I disagree is just as I stated, for the time factors of the Middle East situation, which is God's time clock, Israel, and for that to happen and for America to be neutered so that it can't help means that we have to have some severe problems here at home very rapidly this year.
Well, one of the things that I've stated and even put into writing, when he got inaugurated, everything went into overdrive. The second inauguration, what I believe the Lord showed me was like putting the key in the engine got turned. Everything went into overdrive at that moment. And we've seen all that's happened till then. And you're right, what he's doing with his administration, I'm not even sure. I personally think he's a puppet. But what they're doing
yes.
Is just so shocking that first they've taken control of the media so that nobody's talking about it. And every day a new thing happens, and you sit there like you said, with your jaw dropping going, is anybody paying attention here? Because the dominoes just keep falling. And using your illustration, dominoes start slowly, but then they take off. And it's next thing you know, it's over. So I do agree with you in that regard, because with the earthquakes that are happening, the food shortages, the volcanoes. If all of this starts to happen at once, the ping pong effect, I call it, and in the midst of that, we have civil unrest. You're right. We wouldn't be able to go to Israel's help, and I personally believe that the only way he will get Netanyahu to agree to a two-state solution is a quiet backdoor promise to back them up on Iran, an attack on Iran that he will renege on. That's the only thing I think Netanyahu might fall for. I'm hoping he's not that deceived, but all of this, go ahead.
No, sorry, go on. All of this what?
I said, well, no, you were going to say something about when I said I hope he's not that deceived.
The issue with Obama is a very interesting one because, as you say, I think he's a puppet, and he's not the right genetic heritage and birthplace type guy to be from the revived Roman Empire.
Right. Right.
So if he even convinces Netanyahu to that two-party or that two-state solution, I don't think that he will be the Antichrist. The Antichrist the prince of that time will ratify that, will agree to it, but I think he'll come out of some other country. There are a couple of ideas in that, but look, the Russian invasion of Israel has to come at the beginning of the 7-year tribulation. I say that because of this. After the Russian invasion is thwarted by miraculous means on the mountains of northern Israel, after that happens, they will burn in Israel the weapons left behind for 7 years. Now, if the Messiah had come, they wouldn't need to burn the weapons, for firewood or anything else. When the Messiah comes, they'll have their own source of power and light and love and everything else. So to burn for 7 years means at the beginning of the 7-year tribulation, the Russian invasion has to occur. This puts it very close to where we are now due to a number of other factors of timing and the age of a generation. For 7 months after Israel, or after some miracle kills the army of Russia as they invade Israel, for 7 months they will send special details out to find the dead bodies of the soldiers killed and mark them for burial. Now, why would they mark them for burial? Probably because other teams are coming with hazmat suits, biowarfare, chemical warfare, something kills them, and they don't want to leave them there. They'll gather the bodies up and bury them in a safe place. But it's very important to get rid of all the bodies. Otherwise, the Bible would not have mentioned that as one of the factors. 7 months for that, 7 years to burn the wood. And the guy to sign it or ratify it to be the Antichrist will probably be, out of the revived Roman Empire, whether it be East or Western leg, I don't know, but possibly the Eastern leg. But anyway, here we are at this point. Again, we see the necessity for things to move rapidly. Now, somewhere at the very beginning of this, and maybe over the Russian invasion, what a thought. Anyway, at the Russian invasion of Israel, the alien satanic presence must make itself officially known to offer help.
Yes.
So
yes.
you can just see. I mean, you're right. Hollywood has been used. Spielberg knew it. Look, I had people in his organization contact me, writers and stuff, years ago, probably 10 years ago. And we negotiated and talked about scripting, whatever. And the vote was because of his holdings, and because of other people's graphic production companies that depend on government contracts so heavily, they didn't want to risk making a movie to blow the lid on this. Now, right. I don't know whether we have time left. Certainly it wouldn't stop me trying to produce something like that. But I think, I was thinking this morning, as I wrote you in the email a while ago, I was thinking about, we need to do something like this. Why can't we get Hollywood or, some of the Christian groups to actually fund this kind of a thing? Because it's so plain it's happening right now. And it'd be great TV, but at the same time, wake people up.
My voice is going to break here. When I got saved in October of '88, I got saved out of the entertainment industry, and I knelt down in a makeshift altar in my apartment in New York, which was just a box with a tablecloth on it. And I said, Lord, if you'll let me, I will go back into Hollywood, and I'll shine the light of your truth into every dark corner and expose Satan for who he was. And, of course, being an immature Christian, I thought he was going to open the door right then, and I went to Hollywood, and I tried to strike deals, and I learned the hard way that nobody wants to hear the name of Jesus, and they definitely don't want the truth. Fast forward to January of 2008, the Lord said, lay it all down, walk away. So I did. All those years, all that work, 20 scripts ready to go, production-ready scripts, sitting in my office here ready to go, walked away from it. The beginning of this year, the Lord said, pick it all back up.
Really?
The name of my company is called Firefault Productions. And the name came from the fact that the Lord inspired me to bring the fire of Mount Carmel down to show whose God is God, but also the fire of the upper room upon the remnant to awaken them one last time before the return of the King. So I believe, brother, that that's going to happen. Bypassing Hollywood through digital technology the way it is, instead of taking years to do a feature film, now you can do them in months. And I'm talking quality stuff, not some of the stuff that goes out there. So I believe you're right on track. I believe the timing of all this to expose the fact that these aliens are really fallen angels and that we are on the verge of what I, use the Lord of the Rings term, the return of the king, the real king.
Right.
Having said that, while you were talking and in listening to the show, last week, the repeat, a theory I've had, which you mentioned and we've talked about, is I believe that the alien's going to play good cop, bad cop.
Right.
Because I believe we're going to have one set, probably the reptilians, the really ugly ones, are going to come in and play bad cop. And then the good ones, the humanoid, the beautiful ones will show up to stop them. But it's like professional wrestling where they've all met in a back room, who's going to be the bad guy, how it's going to play out, and they're all in on it. That's my theory of what's getting ready to happen, and I believe 2013, you're absolutely right, is the time frame, because I personally believe this is the year that the New Madrid Fault goes. This is the year, in my opinion, from what I believe the Lord told me about a month ago. I looked at your picture from the flood lines. He told me in 2008, if they split Jerusalem, I will split your nation. And
wow.
Then I looked at your picture, I looked at the New Madrid Fault, and I heard the Lord say this year.
Wow. Interesting.
Wow. Now, if that happens, we will be thrust as a nation into massive chaos. Now,
yes.
For our people, what would happen if the New Madrid Fault went?
Well, boy, that's all kinds of things could happen because of the east-west trading. A lot of our production, food, and all that kind of stuff was on the west side of the New Madrid, and the heavy population of the country is on the east side. And with the storms damaging what they have, and so many farms being just walked away and bankrupt. I mean, there was over 12,000 of them that we lost last year. Small family farms down, gone. That break up the New Madrid would cause all kinds of economic and job communication, getting to and from work, all kinds of problems like that. And something that big would probably trigger other fault lines in the area and possibly even over on the West Coast. Along the lines of what you were talking about with this alien business and Hollywood, don't you think that if we're going to warn people about them and the plan, that we need to do it before they actually appear so that it's not like sour grapes?
Absolutely.
Well, that means you better be getting your script ready.
Yeah, well, that's why at the beginning of the year when the Lord told me to pick them back up, he also told me to start tweaking them and bringing them up to date, which is what I've been doing.
Excellent.
And at the same time, he's been opening doors to me, to people that I haven't talked to in 20 years. And then I'm going to put this out there. I've been having dreams for the last month of being back in the Hollywood community and reconnecting with old friends, and that has started to happen. And so the Lord being the master general, captain of the host that he is, he would just wait. Why does a serpent meek his dove? What does that mean? A snake does not strike until it absolutely has to, and it will be decisive in its final move. It doesn't faint. It will strike, and I think that's what the Lord's going to do. He's waited, and when he makes its move, it's going to be sudden, and it's going to be overwhelming, and the enemy will not be able to react to it in time.
And gentle as a dove probably means basically the way you're talking about in the media or the video media. It gets into their minds and tells them about it, and it defeats the enemy with knowledge, the right knowledge.
Right, and that was the goal, was when I would go pitch this to very wealthy people, and we don't have time to tell you the abuse I took from some of the wealthiest men in this country. The idea was, I just want to tell them the truth, plant the thought in their head. Then they walk out and do what the enemy's been doing. Their mind begins to go, wait a second. That's what he was, and this might mean this, and what about that? And then they get to choose. So when they stand before him in that great white throne and he shows them their life, he will show them that moment that they could have made a choice and chose not to. That's all I want to do, is give them the opportunity to make a quality decision. After that, it's on them.
Well, you're talking about the wealthy people you talk to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In addition to that, you mentioned something else about, the kind of the grand second awakening of the believers and potential believers that aren't quite there yet. They don't have to be wealthy, but I think we're going to see a very short but surprisingly large revival of the Christian faith, the way it should be. And that to do this is going to be something like, you're talking about, like the media, a release that makes them all aware of what's happening. Instead of in churchy terms, this is in real life terms, and they understand it. It's been sealed until the last days. The Lord told us that. You know that. I know that. And I just feel it in my bones that like the stuff you and I also exchanged an email today about the new Swabenland, the Hitler's redoubt down at the Antarctica. I know more about that, which maybe we'll put into your script. I don't know, but these kind of things, if people could see how it all lays together, how it fits, and it fits biblical prophecy as well, they just, they'll have no excuse to say, why wasn't I told?
Well, and if we take the fact that Hollywood, or I jokingly call it Hollywood, since 48, since Israel became a nation, since the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, and since the Roswell event, I believe that was the beginning of the fallen making their militaristic move, piece by piece. And then finally, they've been using Hollywood to indoctrinate, set the people up. But really, what I believe they've done is actually done us a favor, because now I don't have to explain who the Nephilim are. There's so many video games and movies coming about the Nephilim. There are movies about the giants. Everything that we've been talking about on the show for 3 years that nobody knew about, the secular world now knows. So I don't have to explain that to them. I now just have to take that storyline and say, hey, why don't we just flip this over here and let me show you what it really is. Right. And
they've been prepared. The subliminal and sometimes very obvious plans have been made.
Now, you talked about the media, and this is one of my pet peeves. But one of the things that I've been working on, and this is kind of why I continue to study Tesla. Tesla's, according to what I've read, he is probably the father of the Wi-Fi technology. Am I correct?
Well, certainly if you count him as the father of radio before Marconi, yes. It all dates back to that, yeah.
Right. He found a way, because he understood the very low frequencies and that instead of putting up all these towers, he could use the Earth as kind of a broad broadcast medium. And now we have HARP technology. We are enveloped with wireless technology. We are enveloped with broadcast material. And now we have the smart meters on our homes, which I just had a light bulb moment today. We have these smart meters on our homes. We have these smart wave towers that they put up in the 80s for nuclear war still functioning. You add the chip to that component, and now the fallen have the ability to create a hive mind and to manipulate mankind on a worldwide level.
Yes, true. Talking about Tesla, you remember in the late 30s, just after 35 somewhere, he proposed to the U.S. government that he could build them a special kind of electromagnetic shield to stop all aircraft getting into the country if they wanted to defend themselves. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. People took it to mean that he meant directing a ray at a targeted craft. But if you study Tesla's methods, like you were talking about with that tower, he could set up a tower, which he did in Colorado Springs here. You can set up a tower and make a low-frequency wave that goes out around the Earth's surface all the way around to the exact opposite point from where the tower is, but the exact opposite point on the other side of the Earth. There, that kind of wave would meet itself compress to a very fine point and then bounce back and come back up to the transmitter here where he started. And he would add some more energy to it as it bounced back from here back to the bottom. And he'd keep adding energy, bang, 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 in step, in phase with that wave, and building up a huge, strong electromagnetic field with a standing wave in it. Now, why is this important? With a standing wave, it has a density at certain altitude at where it peters off beyond that and below that. And it also treats electrical circuits flying through it as though it were a permanent magnetic field they were flying through, and it generates back EMF currents and EMF currents all through, say, missile guidance systems, and destroys not one but all that fly through it above a certain speed. Now, the reason I find this really interesting is that you know that I do the earthquake predictions. I've been doing it now for about 2 or 3 months. And part of what I use is satellite data on the rapid changes, whether it cools or heats, of the sea surface. And it's what we call a second-order derivative of the data we get to show the rate at which these anomalous temperature changes are occurring. And from that rate and some other things with electrical fields, I can determine where an earthquake is going to occur about 85 to 90% of the time, within 1 to 10 days ahead of time. Well, I was looking at this in mid-January, and I get the map in the morning, I process the data, and it takes a couple hours to go through all the rigmarole, and I noticed a very kind of elliptical, odd-shaped set of rings of rapid temperature changes between New Zealand and Easter Island, down the South Pacific. But I thought, well, and I guess that's a storm down there. I'll check and see if there's any volcanoes under the sea there to generate such a rapid change and make a perfect pattern like that. And, well, no, I couldn't find anything, and I put it aside. And the next day, it was still there. The colors were moving. It wasn't a storm. I thought, well, surely is there a volcano down there we don't know about? I looked around again, couldn't find anything. In the bathymetry maps of the ocean, I couldn't find anything. So, okay, and another day went by. It got stronger and stronger. I thought, what is going on here? Well, suddenly I remembered Tesla, and I said, what's on the other side of the planet from the center of this circle of temperature variations? So I traced back to the exact antipodal point, to the exact opposite side of the planet, and you know where it landed? On Romania, on an Air Force base at Devaselu in Romania, where the United States and NATO are building a missile defense shield base and spending $500 million on it. Now, that's just too good to be coincidental. So I kept watching. And for another couple of days, it increased, and then gradually it dissipated and was gone. Now, the U.S. Navy has done testing of stuff like this in the early 60s at Pine Gap in Australia, in Exmouth, the Northwest Cape in Western Australia. I mean, I've even got pictures of their towers and their arrays where they generate these Tesla-type waves there in the 60s. In fact, I've even got 2 or 3 of the capacitors out of the system that ran it here in my house. Now, why would the Russians be excited about a missile shield ostensibly to defend the NATO alliance countries from missiles that Iran might shoot at them? Well, I can't figure out why it would bother Russia, because we can't really use that kind of a missile defense shield to defend the United States against Russian-launched missiles, either east or west, because we would have to have such fast rockets to chase their missiles and catch up to them and destroy them accurately. Instead of meeting them head-on or at oblique angles to head-on, we would have to go really fast, faster than most things are even made to work at hypersonic speeds, in the real world. Now, so I think why Russia was more upset about that missile base is because they knew that we were going to be putting in a Tesla-type transmitter there, which I saw the early testing of in January. And that field, if it established in Romania, would be so strong in the atmosphere over Europe and Russia that anything flying at a specific speed above X, what might be 2,000 miles an hour, whatever, and between an altitude of blah and blah, would short out and burn and crash. Now, I would be upset then if I were Russia if you're putting one of these mantles over my country. What happened then is... Okay. What happened then, to my surprise, was this field disappeared after about 10 days. I thought, well, okay, I guess they were testing it. The base isn't ready till 2015, so this is a preliminary test like they did in Australia, okay. And then a few days later, a big, long, elliptical thing just like that occurred over a fault line leading into Chile, right over Easter Island into Chile. And it stayed, and it stayed, and it stayed. So, okay, let me get out my little other side of the planet calculator and see what's on the other side of the planet. Well, there are two things, because it was a long trough. There are two places. One is a NATO U.S. base in Mongolia, and another, right to the west of it, is in China at an oil refinery in the middle of nowhere with a lot of equipment and buildings around called an oil refinery. I think that we have another base, and the Chinese have one, and they're all playing games at the moment with these Tesla-type transmitters. I know this is long-winded and perhaps
No. You just, but I think we just stumbled on something here. Hold on, Joe. I think we just stumbled on something here. Somebody within the Russian government said that meteor exploded in the sky because of some kind of defense system, and maybe what you just described was a practice run that day. That meteor was coming in off of those other things, and they tested it, which I think the fallen through mankind stole Tesla's technology since World War II. Because some of what you're describing, the Nazis used with the Foo Fighters and the planes when they flew into certain areas over the Black Forest, all electronics shut down just like when a UFO was present. But now on a worldwide level, I believe that meteor exploding in the sky, because I kept sitting here going, why'd it explode in the sky? And then you got that guy from the Russian Democratic Movement, I don't have his name in front of me, screaming that was the Americans, they were testing some kind of defense system.
Oh, that is priceless. I didn't hear that. Wow. Well, listen, go to my website and look at the animations and the pictures, all that stuff I was telling you about. It'll explain it. Go to standeyo.com and where? Up at the top of the page.
I'm on your page. Good.
Okay, up there where it says Stan's Corner in the orange box, is right in the middle of it. It says Stan's Corner.
Uh-huh.
Click on that.
Got it.
Okay, go down to the bottom of that page. See where it says Stan's Show Images?
Uh-huh.
Go there.
Okay.
And the first thing you'll see at the top row there is Missile Shield Anomaly. Click on that.
I got it.
Okay. Now there are details of everything I was showing you, the fields that I saw, the base, the antipodal point, the airstrip, Pine Gap, and the Exmouth Cape, and then an animation at the bottom showing how that ring goes out. That Tesla wave goes out from Romania and goes around the Earth. It's in color of 3D animation. I had not put that together. That is incredible thought there, Richard.
I got goosebumps on me. You could build condominiums on.
Wow.
All right, Joe, jump in here because I'm speechless.
No, I'm pretty speechless too because exactly what the question I was going to kind of answer about how everything happened, you answered the question. It's amazing. What I find what this show is amazing tonight is just the fact that a lot of the stuff that you and I, Richard, had talked about and thought, and of course you put together some nice theories. Stan just kind of like filled in those gaps to say, hey, you know what, we are all on that right track to something. So it was amazing how I am just sharpened iron tonight. I have learned so much, and Stan, you actually pieced, that question I asked at the beginning of the show. I mean, you just kind of laid it out in really descriptive. It was perfect because now I have a better understanding of how everything is playing out as well. So, I do appreciate that, and thank God for you, for you coming on the show and sharing a lot of your insight. My question to you now, Stan, is what can we expect, in your opinion, what can we expect as we're, in the second month here in 2013? What do you think that we'll see in 2013 to come as we go into, the end of the year? Like, what would you say is something pivotal that we could be looking for in 2013?
Oh, Lord. I think that a peaceful life is not amongst them, the things that we'll be looking for in 2013. There are just so many people. I mean, just look at the United States, for instance. There's so many people unemployed here that, we were used to a cush life and everything will be right in America and, the government will take care of it. Now it's all falling apart thanks to a lot of behind-the-scenes assassins trying to kill America. And what we're seeing is over 25% real unemployment. 1 in 4 people don't have work. And that's the real figures, right? We're seeing the U.S. dollar just collapsing, prices of gold and silver doing weird things, dropping when they should be rising. China and other countries buying as much gold as they can in their international banking groups. And with these things in place, and with a meteor that came close, and little meteorites, flying around after the fact and making booms over the thing, with the Earth itself expanding, I'm thinking we're going to see some real seismic activity this year. I'm already seeing it on the west side of the Ring of Fire in the Pacific. The Richter 5 earthquakes on that side in the last 30 days have been 4 to 1 in number over what happens on the eastern side, north or the west coast of the United States and South America. And now then that trend in my maps is starting to reverse. I'm seeing the potential for quakes from the tip of Argentina all the way up the west coast, all the way up into Central America, all the way up into Alaska. And I'm seeing strange things like a chain of pearls almost, the signals that I'm getting that tell me that earthquake pressures are building. Now, they don't have to happen, but 85 to 90% of the time they do. And the only thing that saved Los Angeles in the last 2 months from a serious earthquake, a big one, is the fact that the San Andreas is not the only fault there. There are a lot of other ones all around going over into Nevada as well. And when the pressure builds up, and I see it, and I put the circles there, I'm expecting a bigger earthquake. I get that kind of energy. I get 34% more earthquakes in that area in the week that I tell you. And it distributes over all these fault lines as little quakes, which is great at the moment as long as that whole network holds together. If that goes, especially the one up in Cascadia in the Juan de Fuca plate just off the shore of Washington, Oregon, that earthquake could be probably about a Richter 9 or better. And this is from the official USGS data on it, and other seismologists around the world have been studying the Ring of Fire. That big Richter 9 off of Indonesia a few years back that caused a tidal wave and killed 250,000 people or more, that was the beginning of the plate starting to break up there on that side of the world. It's now moving toward our side of the world, and all these sinkholes that we're seeing, to me, are an indication that another factor is at play, and that is that the core of the Earth is expanding, and hence the Earth's surface is expanding and weakening the cohesive force, the gravitational force that holds sand and dirt and rock together sideways. The sideways pressure is weakening as the surface of the Earth expands and becomes thinner. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit. This tells me then that these earthquakes are going to become more numerous and huge as we approach the crescendo, if you wish, of the expansion of the core of the Earth.
Now, having said that, what do the solar flares have to do with all that? Because from what my limited understanding, what's amazing is when Joe was talking and I was thinking about the conversation, you see everything from the mindset of a scientist. You understand all these things. I see everything from the mindset of the fallen, having coming out of the demonic and spend the last 24 plus years dealing with them. I see everything through their eyes. Oh, this is what they're doing. But when you put the two of them together like a presentation where you overlap transparencies, oh, that's really what's happening. And that's
right.
What I think has happened here tonight. So if we take the fact that I believe that the Lord created the sun as a plasma generator to sustain the energy of the Earth, and that's probably just a very limited understanding of that, what are these solar flares doing to us? What is the activity from the sun doing to this planet?
Well, a lot of things. The sun, like every other star that we've been able to observe, is aging, and as it ages, its diameter does increase, and sometimes in leaps and bounds to form a red giant, and other times it's a gradual process. Right now, the Russians have, probably 25 years ago, stated that the sun has burned up over half of its hydrogen fuel and may be changing its nuclear reaction, the chemistry of it, to a more fusion-based thing with helium directly. Now, what this means is the sun is unstable at the moment. We're all certain of that. This solar sunspot cycle is number 24. It's the 24th grouping of about 11.8 years that mankind has been taking data on sunspots. Now, the first time in the time since we've been keeping records in the late 1500s about the sun and the sunspots, for the first time, mankind is calling this particular solar sunspot cycle a grand solar sunspot cycle maximum. Now, that is weird because the number of sunspots we're getting in this 24 cycle are low. They are lower than normal. So where's the energy that normally would come out in the sunspots radiating energy out as in the past? It's coming out in great filaments and loops of plasma just under the surface of the visible sun surface. And these are throwing off tremendous coronal mass ejections of particles at speeds over 2 million miles an hour. They might take a couple of days to reach us, or less, as they get more energetic. But these things hitting our magnetopods, the magnetic field around the Earth, are causing energy to be dumped into the Earth's system through the ionosphere, through the electromagnetic field inside the Earth, because as it impinges on our magnetic shield, it pumps it physically or mechanically, and it pumps energy into the core of the planet, causing the heating. Mm-hmm. Now, the sun changes its poles every 11 years. It's a complete cycle of that, where the North Pole goes to south and then comes back again. It takes 22 years. That's called the Hale magnetic cycle of the sun. It is now, this year, 2013, about to flip its poles again. Normal thing, but with this much activity, this intense burst of energy coming out of the sun, out into the solar system, and we're close to it, when our own magnetic field here on Earth is weakening, and we have our own problems with the expansion of the planet due to the heating, our north and south magnetic pole are already starting to wobble, and the North Pole is wobbling twice as fast as the South Pole, drifting back and forth. We may see that the sun's flip of its poles flips our magnetic field as well, where it wouldn't have before, but our field is so weak. Now, if that happens, we will then be bathed on the planet during that transition period where the poles are reversing and starting to wind up and be strong again. We will be bathed in extra ultraviolet radiation, gamma radiation, all kinds of stuff that normally is shielded, that we're shielded from by our electromagnetic fields that attend the magnetic field of the Earth. This will cause life to go into caves and underground, because the ultraviolet radiation will be very damaging to skin and to plants and all kinds of things that are on the surface of the ocean or just beneath it. This is how the sun is going to be a major player, and Satan does not control the sun. That's a God-directed action.
Right.
Now, so God is in control, as you said, and what we're seeing here is He's using the sun to bring about judgment of not only Satan but those who follow him, and they're going to feel it here on the Earth. All the planets in our solar system, in the 9 main planets anyway, 8 main and 1 minor, are seeing an expansion and an increase of heat, and their polar regions are heating up. Now, it's too long for me to go into here, but I've been working on a paper now for 2 years to explain how gravity really works, and it's a two-dimensional force, how it has to have spin around an axis, and how every planet, every star, every galaxy that has gravity has spin, and that the poles of that spin axis open up periodically to let the heat of the inner core of these objects escape, and then the poles close. Our north and south pole are so warm now that it's an atypical melting of the ice pack. Are we about to see our poles open up for a brief period of time, like my theory suggests, and heat from the core bursts out through there? I don't know. But all of this, I think, can come to play here. And they even say in the Bible in this time that the earth will reel to and fro like a drunken man. That sounds like more than just a magnetic pole shift. That sounds like the axis of spin actually is affected. All things relating back to the sun.
What would that do to the ring of fire? Would that cause it to go?
Oh, well, hey, yeah, it doesn't necessarily make the earthquake. What it does is release the pressures that are building up. And the sun has been a function of building the stresses, but the Earth just aging. As it ages, it increases in diameter, just like every other thing with gravity. It's a process that may be in steps, like quantum steps, or it may be gradual. It doesn't matter. The Earth, in its normal aging process, will expand, and there will be earthquakes and stretching. But with the sun added to it, we've got a double whammy on us right now.
Well, that would be a perfect time and I'm giving this away, and I know somebody will take it and write a book or write a blog, but I got to share it. That would be a perfect time for one of the Greek gods that controlled the sun to reappear, to restore and protect mankind, or an alien form or whatever, somebody coming from the other side of all that saying we cannot wait any longer, do you want to help? And mankind would at that moment gladly say yes.
And anyone that had that kind of power would obviously be God. Hey, what about this, Richard? Suppose they bring videotapes of the crucifixion. Say, oh, we were there, and this is how it happened, and now we're back. That's possible, you know.
There's rumors of that. There's been talk of that. That was how they were going to do it through Project Bluebeam. My only concern in all of the one world religions is they are never going to get the Muslims and the Islam faith to submit. So the only way, I think those of the Muslim faith are being set up. I think they're being set up that finally somebody's going to step up and say, since you won't play nice, we've got to remove you. I don't think they'll submit. Do you?
Yes, but for a different reason. All this started with an angel appearing to Ishmael's mother in the desert when they'd been kicked out of Abraham's tents. And that angel didn't necessarily have to be from God. It could have been from Satan. And
right.
That whole Ishmael thing became the Arab nations and eventually the Muslim faith.
Right.
Now, the Muslim faith honors force. They use force to force people into their religion. In the book of Daniel, there is something mentioned, another obscure term, which tells us that the Antichrist of this age will know how to deal with the Arabs and the Muslims particularly to get them to kowtow, to give in and follow his way. And it will be by force. The second holiest place for the Muslims is in Jerusalem, the Temple of the Mount. The Temple of the Mount is the number one holy place for the Jews and for many Christians and for many other religions that have their headquarters there or their temples there in Jerusalem. Now it says, a warning to the people living in Jerusalem at the time that this happens, the Antichrist of this age will place that which makes desolate, the abomination of desolation, in the temple, which we assume is in Jerusalem. And when you see this happen, leave town so fast that you don't even grab clothes. Head for the hills,
right.
Run like crazy.
I've always wondered if that was some kind of nuclear or radiation event.
Absolutely. That's what it says in Daniel. It is the thing, not the person. It is the thing that creates absolute desolation, destroyer. And that's an atomic bomb. Why would they do that there? They would do that there. He would do that there to tell the Muslims, the Christians, the Jews, everybody else, the first one of you guys that steps out of line, I'm going to melt your holy places to the ground, and then I'll come after you. Now behave. That will make the Muslims behave. They will appreciate that. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Never thought about it. It's funny, as I kept looking at that desolation, flee. I've been in Isaiah. I've been in all those places, and I finally said, what would cause them to flee that quickly, not take any clothes, hope it doesn't happen at night? I said, some kind of nuclear event, something involving radiation. That would be the only thing.
Well, you and I have both been prompted by the same spirit. Let me tell you, that's how we explain it.
That would be the only thing that would tell them to flee to Petra, which would be an area that they could probably, in the deepness of that rock, be protected from whatever happened there. Wow, I actually just expanded the show to the full 2 hours here, so I hope you're not ready to go anywhere because we're just clicking on all cylinders right now, and I hope people are getting excited.
Well, I hope they are too. There's a lot to talk about.
I talk a lot about HARP and the technology, but I don't really explain. I've had some people write me and go, I'm not really sure you understand what you're saying, but I don't. Is there a simple way to explain to people what HARP is?
Well, HARP is an extension of some work that Tesla proposed and tested.
Right, I believe it's from his technology. That's my personal belief.
Now, his technology involved standing waves, like I think they call them scalar waves nowadays, but anyway, standing waves from his transmitter, and also from involving the upper ionosphere by pumping energy up into it. He wanted to light the entire planet by using a certain type of frequency that he could point, and it would go up from the transmitter straight up into the ionosphere and spread out and charge the ionosphere, and like a neon bulb, we would have eternal daylight. There would be no darkness. That was his proposition. Now, obviously, it didn't happen in his time, but the HARP transmitters, and there's not just one up in Alaska, there's at least 8 on the planet at the moment, and the Russians have got them, Chinese have got them, and I don't know who else might have them involved, but America's got 2 or 3 of them. These things point a particular kind of radio wave, if you wish, of a frequency straight up into the atmosphere, and it passes through the thermal air up into the ionosphere where it is trapped and where it adds energy to the ionosphere. Now, it heats the air above this a bit when that beam goes up into the ionosphere. It also allows you to do something else. If you control all of these 8 stations, or however many there are, in concert, you can use them to cause hurricanes and bad weather and stuff like that to deflect away from populated areas. They don't cause the hurricanes and tornadoes so much as they steer them by heating the air on either side of the spinning vortex. So they can weather control with that. By doing that, they can increase crop production and reduce, damage from flooding and drought and various other things. A great thing. And the Russians and the United States have been in a treaty agreement since 1975, I think it was, for limiting weather warfare, because you can use this for warfare, hitting the other guy's food supply, flooding the other guy's country, making electrical storms that make it impossible for them to fly, or this kind of stuff.
Right, which we've been accused of by Chavez and some other people of already doing, like in Haiti.
Yeah, well, okay, here's the problem with that. Right now, we're not a unified planet. The Chinese have their idea of when to turn on their transmitters and what frequency to use and how to pulse it, where to send it. The Russians have their idea. We have our idea. If all 3 of them are not in concert, then the results are unpredictable. It takes days sometimes to stoke up the field and get the energy focused. It doesn't happen at the push of a button. So if you start, and then Russia starts, and then China starts, you could have a flock of birds flying along, you hit a solid wall of something in the air that's invisible, and crush them in mid-flight. Booms that would appear, moaning sounds, strange whistling sounds in the atmosphere that are audible. All these things could be a function of HARP interactions. Hey, and you want to know another thing? Think about this. When the Antichrist does come to power, he's going to do like God did for Solomon when he dedicated the first temple.
Go ahead. I know where you're going, because I was sitting here thinking the same thing about the principality of that.
Absolutely. Well, you're right. I mean, he's going to drop a lightning bolt down, the Antichrist is, and on a target that he will choose and say, look, I have the power. I'm your Messiah. Watch. Bring down lightning to strike that building. Bang. And when you think about that, think about what happened over at the Basilica in Rome when the Pope stood down.
Right. I don't think that was God. I personally think that was Satan making an announcement. I don't think that was God.
Of course it was. He probably would have used one of the transmitters to do it. It was just
think about this.
Too much.
Take what you just said. Now, the fallen have, I believe, been manipulating mankind since the beginning, preparing for this moment. Either slipping in and at a time, maybe taking human form. I don't know. It depends on how Hollywood we want to go here. But they get mankind to build all of these same devices, thinking they're in control of it, and then at the last moment take complete control of all of them. Now he truly is the prince of the power of the air. Now he's in control of everybody's weather, everybody's food, everybody's well-being. How do you not yield to that person?
There you go. I mean, you're talking about time jumps. These guys, I'm sure, Satan himself for sure, but all the other people that traveled with him, I know how they can alter time in their craft and in certain kinds of rooms. And they could have been here on the planet from, some of them from, back at the time of the Garden of Eden, and never left, and be the same people arriving here now by just moving forward in time in jumps where they don't age as much, and perhaps in the bodies they have, they don't age at all. But they would certainly have been here and alive at the time of the Messiah and before, and would have ways to give people information and documents and secret locations that people don't know about. So, we were there, and we're your creators. It just all fits in. It's just an amazing thing how all the pieces at this generation are falling into place.
The frequency, the low frequencies, all of this that's enveloping us, and everything that they're creating. And you said you present a theory I'd not even considered. I believe that they're using the DNA and the abductions. They're trying to build bodies for all of the disembodied spirits they have. But then again, I just saw the first bionic humanoid man in the UK, and I'm thinking, well, if they perfect that, all he has to do is, using all the circuits, imprint a spirit upon it, and now something has a body. Taking what you just said, that these things might be half human, half mechanical, would they be creating this sustainable energy field to keep them running? You understand what I mean?
I understand what you mean. I don't know whether that would be necessary, because I do believe that the little gray critters are biological robots that Satan and the Nordic-looking humans that are with him, the fallen ones, I think they built these things to do exactly what they're doing, cast fear into the human population for abductions and, poking and prodding, and these are fearful. Understand this, your listeners more than you, because I know you do already. Satan is very, very smart, and he knows what the Bible says, has known for a long time. He knows that this generation, that there are a lot of Christian and Jewish folk and some, even some Muslim folk, who are looking for certain signs to occur. And one of them is that there's a bad guy on the planet, or bad guys, the little gray critters, and a good guy, Satan, who comes as a Messiah. He knows that people are expecting the good Messiah to arrive. So what he does is impersonate it ahead of time, make it a counterfeit second coming. And to make that really work, he has to get rid of, quote-unquote, Satan and the bad aliens, right? The bad people. And so for 50 or 60 years, Satan's biological grays have been coming in and, annoying people, frightening people, and the government's been denying it. We're not going to admit that. That doesn't happen. And yet everybody in the underground knows that they are there. They are doing this. There's too many abductions and, hybrid beings, and this is terrible. We're afraid. Satan comes in fulfilling the role of Messiah. He has to lay that chess piece of the enemy attacking us first to get rid of them, so that people, that even the very elect, if such were possible, they would be fooled, because he's gotten rid of the bad guys and he knows everything.
Well, and that's the perfect, not egomaniacal, not just the word narcissist, sociopath. He's the embodiment of everything. If he was going to play, if he's going to be in the play, if he's in the staged event, he's going to give himself that role. He's going to want to look that good, and he's going to make everybody act the way they have to get there. And that's why we have these events. Joe and I were talking about the UFOs over Jerusalem, and how, Joe, what were we saying about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the weirdest thing on this one, there's a couple of different videos that, from 2011, I even believe there's 2012, but they had UFO footage over Jerusalem, and on a couple of little sequences, if you pause it, I forget the correct number. I think it's like 3 minutes and 50 seconds into it, or something like that. If you pause it, you will actually see a beam of light that's coming up from the ground and going up into the object. And right around that same time that allegedly happened, there was also reports that people were seeing 9-foot angelic beings within the area as well. So a lot of this stuff, and this is what blows me away, because you can go from a technological point and say, okay, look, they're aliens, UFOs, extraterrestrials coming here. There's a good race, bad race, grays, reptilians, all this stuff, and you can look at it on a scientific level and a sci-fi. And then you can take the biblical aspect, and what is mind-blowing about that is that the Bible talks a lot about this stuff. When you look at it this way, you can't help, and I always say this, even if I was a skeptic and I was listening to this show throughout the years, or, even if I was listening to the past 2-3 months, and I decided to do my homework and started reading the Bible and researching a lot of stuff that we're talking about, it's amazing to me that no matter what, you seem to always end up in Genesis 6. And Genesis 6 always that's where everything is. And you could look at it, okay, these fallen ones, the Nephilim, everything is all tied in to Genesis 6, and you can see it more and more, and it's coming that way. But Stan, what is your opinion on that? The UFOs more sightings being sighted around the Jerusalem area in Israel, where the dome is. What is your take on that?
Well, I don't know whether the density of sightings is greater there than anywhere else on the earth, but I do think that area is going to be a very politically busy area when things start to fall apart. I looked at that footage, and I looked at professional graphic animators say that footage was fake, and I don't believe that because I watched the acceleration of that thing going up. It had an acceleration curve. It started at slow, relatively slow, and then zoop, and it was fast and then gone. It wasn't just blinkety-blink gone, which is easier to do than an acceleration curve like that. But anyway, the fact that it was over Jerusalem like that and that they said that they saw these beings, I don't know whether they did or not, does indicate to me that we are right about the alleged alien presence going to be played as a trump card, if you wish, in what is coming. And it's going to be played over Jerusalem as well as probably a couple of other key cities in the world. Maybe Washington, maybe Moscow. I mean, I don't know. But they're going to have to be present and officially seen and photographed. And because so much is going to happen, the two witnesses that are yet to come, if they are like indeed people, they're going to have to stand there and witness to the world in that area. There's going to be a lot of things that play out in Israel, not so much all of them in Jerusalem, but some of them up in the Megiddo plain, and for the Armageddon crisis and the invasion area. And there's just a lot of things that are going to be focal in that area of the world. So for them to draw attention to themselves there is not unexpected. They're going to be impersonating a lot of things, and so we just wait and see. This year, I think, is going to be the year we've been waiting for, at least, as far as saying, yeah, I told you so. There are real things like that, but from our point of view, we're going to be saying, yeah, but don't trust them and run the other direction if you see them. Gee, I tell you what. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just that footage. I've seen the various footage, and one of them looks very fake. And there is, being a filmmaker and being able to edit, there is what they call Adobe After Effects footage of that area at that moment. But then I've seen another one where people have done it from their cell phone, and you can see the traffic moving, and you can see the lights blinking, and that indicates to me that that's real live footage. And then you see what you said is that anomaly looks very real, and it would make sense why they wouldn't want anybody to believe that. They're not really ready yet to get First of all, people are going to get afraid. They really have to dumb them down and desensitize them, which is why I think we've had the outbreak of the movies, the TV show, Falling Skies. They're slowly desensitizing us to the point where people are going to go, oh, I saw that on V, I saw that in that movie, and Battlefield. Oh yeah, this is what this is. And now they're not afraid. Now they're plugged in, and then the deception comes. Stan,
sorry, yeah, go on.
No, go ahead. Add your thought. Add your thought about that.
Well, my thought about that is, looking at the V series that Ken Johnson wrote, and then it became a series of movies and TV shows as well, and looking at Falling Skies and various other aliens are here type situations, we're starting to see more of the two types of aliens. In the Falling Skies, you had the main thrust, and you had the rebels that were on our side to help us. In V, what you didn't see in the way they did it, but in his final book of the series, Ken Johnson said that another alien race, more powerful than the V, came to deliver America from them. So you have that good guy, bad guy scenario going there, imprinting in the written form anyway into our minds. And within the V that he did as a movie, there was some resistance within the V, themselves that were on our side. So you see there's a good and bad aliens, and they will help us, the good guys will help us get rid of the bad guys type thing. It's been planted there since the 70s when it first came out. More and more of the stuff is coming. And what I look for in these things is how they turn the alien presence or part of it into our friends to help us. When those messages are strong, and certainly are in Falling Skies and certainly were in V, then you know that they're getting us ready for that very scenario. We are being primed. And I find that Ken Johnson's portrayal of it was just so biblical. I mean, you're familiar with the series, I take it, with the movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What defeated the bad aliens in the end was the blood of a hybrid human and off-worlder, alien, like the blood of Jesus, who is part man, part God, right? Or his blood saved the earth, and it, in his Ken Johnson's secular version, it rids us of the guys in red, the lizard people that look like humans. It's just, and that's like going back to the serpent in the Garden of Eden. Subliminally, that strikes you back to their secret, posing as humans, but they're really aliens. Look, I haven't seen them, but when I was with Teller's group, I had I was told by guards and stuff that the skin on the human-like aliens that they met was like in the sunlight, like rainbow, a little bit like an oil slick on their body because of the scales. Instead of skin cells, they were scale cells, very small, and it was so small that they broke up the light, made it look like, rainbow-type stuff on their skin when it moved, which is, again, kind of, they got reptilian DNA in it, or what's the deal? Boy, I hope we have time to get some of this out to some kind of a media or like video or DVD or movie or whatever, because people need to see what's been happening to them. They need to see about the condition.
I believe we'll talk about that more off the air, but I definitely believe that we do, and I believe that for a time such as this, and the Lord will protect us to get that word out, because when you were talking, I realized why this version of V got canceled as quickly as it did, because they were getting into what you just said, and I personally believe, this is just my whacked out theory, I believe the fallen rule Hollywood, and they rule it through certain men. I have a friend of mine who was a very high-ranking executive. He's on his own now, and he would call me up. I've known him since college. And he'd call me up and say, if America ever knew who was making the decisions for what they see, they would be appalled. He would hesitate to shake their hand because their very presence made him nauseous. He's not a spirit-filled Christian, doesn't understand anything we're talking about. He said their very presence would make them feel nauseous. And I would very slowly try to get him to understand you were probably in the presence of something, I wouldn't say wasn't human, that was very evil. But they may not have even been human. Because we know from Nazi Germany and propaganda, the first way you have to attack the people to make this kind of a move is in their beliefs and in their mind.
Right.
Which gets me to my final question. I've stumbled onto something that I'm studying. If you've noticed in all of the bizarre crimes, the shootings, the stabbings, the beheadings, the cannibalism, almost unequivocally 9 times out of 10 these people say, I was listening to a voice in my mind. And everybody goes, well, they're crazy, or they're demon-possessed. I think there's something else going on. I believe that through technology that we've been perfecting for a while, have implemented in the Gulf War, but now I think they're using to create civil unrest. I believe that they are manipulating people through very low frequencies and extra low frequencies to act out. Now, of course, they have to find people with a certain personality profile to get them to do it. But I believe that that's going on right now. What do you think?
Oh, I think so. I've seen it. I've seen some of the devices in operation on television where the transmitter transmitting the sound, you heard nothing. Like if you were in the audience, you'd hear nothing. But the guinea pig sitting on the guy sitting on the stool that is supposed to play in the experiment, he's sitting there and he says, okay, I hear nothing either. And the host is holding a flat plate kind of like a microwave-type transmitter, and he turns it toward this guy, and it goes through his head, and immediately he hears music and stuff that's playing that no one can hear because it's a modulated microwave wave going through his body at low energy density, so it doesn't hurt him. Now, if you spoke in the microphone there and said, you need to go and kill 50 people, that would be the same kind of stuff these idiots are talking about. They heard a voice in their head say it, so it must be God. In this day and age, you got to be very careful of technology that makes you think that something extraordinary has happened. You better step back and think about it.
Amen. And that's why I've been looking at this, and it takes me a little while to get it because I have to see it from a warfare perspective. But now between the smart meters on my home, and it's not by accident, it's just they put that meter on my home. I have a dog who's got a thyroid that's dead. I have a body that I think my thyroid is dead, and I'm trying to bring it back. All of this happened after that meter went on the home. So we have that. We have these Gwen towers that are still working. We have the cell towers that are going up at a record rate. We've got Wi-Fi everywhere, and all of this we're walking around la-di-da like it's not affecting us when our body is an electronic instrument. God designed us that way. We have to be negatively impacted by all of this.
Well, we do, and I agree with you. And I was just thinking while you're talking about that we don't need the Gwen Towers to do something like this. You are familiar, I take it, with the work of the late Dr. T. Henry Moray in making free energy?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That was what?
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, because that tied in a lot to something what Tesla thought about the Earth and the grids and all that. But go ahead.
Right.
I've looked at that.
Okay. Well, I've studied his work in great detail and talked with his son John and a number of other people involved in it. One of the things that was actually printed in his book, The Sea of Energy, was that when he was tuning his field that generated this electricity, from the atmosphere, he would be in his home. He had the antenna stretched out there on two poles out behind the house, and he found out he could tune that field that was getting energy out of the atmosphere, which was really out of the solar wind, out of the sun directly. He could tune that field in such a manner that he could hear 5 miles away at a train station as though we're in the room next to him. It's like a radio, but a radio picking up from a standing wave 5 miles away that he was generating in his field. He heard a train conductor telling people all aboard, blah, 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 time of the train, day of the train was all proven, and he was doing that with this modulated field. Therefore, if they were to generate that same kind of field and run it over the entire planet, and instead of making just standing waves, make it moving waves, wave fronts, they could theoretically put a voice in any language they want to the entire world at the same time, modulating that kind of a wave, because it goes through everything. And then you see this missile defense shield we were talking about. That's the same kind of a field, same kind.
Now let's add the RFID chip in the body to that equation.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're going to be totally a serf in a giant serfdom here, and totally controlled. One misstep and you're going to be squashed like a bug. They just cut off your chip or cut off you, whatever's worked best, and you're gone. Nobody cares. Nobody knows.
Well,
it's horrible.
Yeah, and they've been planning this, because you're right. This whole thing about time, we don't have time to go into it, because the Lord has just now. There's another member of our team, Larry. He and I pray almost every day. And
right.
Simultaneously, the Lord revealed to us time and how he transported the teleportation or the translation of Philip to the Ethiopian eunuch, and some of the things that we see in the Bible. How the Lord showed it to me is on my computer, if I open up my sound software and I run a song through it, I see all the bands that are encased in that song. And what the Lord showed me as I looked at this, and he goes, that's your reality. That's time. And all of these bands are existing at the same time. You only understand what you understand. And he says, so what if I took Philip and just moved him up into this band, moved him over here and pulled him down and put him exactly where I wanted him to? Kind of like the yogis and the New Age guys who claim that they just step through a window and then they come out another window and they're someplace else.
Hey, I have no problem with that. I agree with you 100%. I think of the same terms as you do on that. Transdimensional travel, bring the 2 points close together in a transdimensional universe, and you just step up to that, take 2 steps, and step down, and you're miles away. But it did happen. I mean, Philip did get transported.
Right.
Star Trek didn't invent that. God did.
Right, and it's because he lives outside of time. He created this and sustains it according to Genesis 1:1 and other things. It's the Lord who sustains everything. He holds it together by, I believe, the sound of his voice, the vibration of his voice. He holds it all together. But the fallen were there at the beginning. They saw how he created everything, and they've taken what little secrets they knew while they were there and used it to their advantage. But
right.
praise God, he's opened the book for us, and he's catching us up. And if we follow Enoch, when he gave them their final proclamation of judgment, he basically said, you shared the secrets of heaven with mankind, and you didn't even know the best. I had saved the best, which means I believe he saved it for now and for us.
Yes, I think that's true. I do. And,
so, Stan, we've talked about this now for almost 2 hours. We've gotten some people excited. We probably have some people afraid. I don't live in fear. I know you don't live in fear. The final, we've got like 21 minutes left, and so what, to the people that are listening right now, when I know you have a book called, where is Dare to Prepare? Is that it? I hope I got the title right.
Holly wrote a book on the Dare to Prepare, and I
Dare to
wrote
Prepare.
The Conspiracy. Okay. That's right.
Right. So, and they can get that at standeyo.com, and there's a link in the show info.
Yeah.
To the people that are listening right now, what would you say to them as an elder, as somebody who's been around and understands both the natural and the spiritual, what they should be looking at preparing for?
All right. The first thing is to be encouraged, because for those that are believers and followers of Yeshua ben Elohim, God, the followers of Jesus, here's a promise that we will be taken care of. We're being watched, even though we can't see him. Every believer has, at least one angel there taking care of him, watching him. During what is about to come, a number of Christians have seen visions or had dream visions of the Holy Spirit as a golden glow dropping down out of the skies onto believers and surrounding them and indwelling them. And one guy said that he saw people sitting around a table with empty bowls that were believers, and they were hungry. And the Spirit passed the plates, and they were full, just like the miracle of the fish and the loaves. And the people needed to be from one place to another to be safe. The Spirit transported them, just like Philip did, was translated to meet the Ethiopian eunuch. That tells you that Spirit is going to be available to us in this time, as long as the Holy Spirit is here. And other things, I'm sure, healing, raising the dead even. These things will be at our disposal through the Spirit. In addition, we need to make our own preparations, get our own oil for our lamps, in essence, to prepare physically to endure until the Lord needs to take over. We should not sit on our backside doing nothing. We should prepare physically as well as spiritually, and always pray every day for covering and protection. That's basically all that Holly and I are trying to do. Her book is on the preparations you need to do to endure until the time that we're taken out, and like in the rapture or until you age and die or whatever. But you need to have physical preparation as well as spiritual. And so her book is physical, mine is spiritual, and the two overlap a bit in the text. But basically, it's both sides of the coin you're talking about. And people should look at both and do both to the ultimate of their ability. If they're poor, they don't have to have a huge warehouse of, fallout food and, shelters and that kind of stuff. They just have to do what they can. If they can only do $10 worth of preparation by getting some Coke bottles and putting fresh water in for their family, then do that. The rest that you can't do, the Lord will take care of in the time of trying that's coming. So don't worry. It'll be all right.
Amen. And I think I've said this before. As the Lord has shown me what's coming, sometimes my logical mind begins to analyze and gets too far down the road and start to wonder, well, how am I going to do this, and where's the food going to come? And one time I just heard the Lord chuckle. He said, hey, I took care of my children in the wilderness for 40 years. You think I can take care of you? Yes,
true.
yes. Yeah, I'm good. All right. But in our natural mind, we can get overwhelmed, which is why we always, in my opinion, have to look at this spiritually first. We have to understand who he is spiritually. And once we have that measure of faith, and the rest of it will fall into place, which gets us to, if you're not born again and you don't have that measure of faith, that should be your first place to prepare. Stan, I really appreciate you, and we're definitely going to talk this week about the other stuff because I'm moving forward. I'm actively involved. Joe, final question, final thought for Stan?
Well, first of all, Stan, it's been a blessing to just hear you and hear your theories and and a lot of good points that you touched upon. I mean, I could just listen to you for hours talk. I definitely learned a lot of stuff you were able to just fill in a lot of the codes and things that I'm sure Richard and myself really felt that we were on the right track. You just kind of gave that little nudge that we needed. So it was an absolute blessing for me to just sit here and listen to you, and I hope we can do this again in the future. One final question I will say, as we were talking about the whole UFOs over Israel and things like that, I will say this. With the shows that were out over the past few years with Ancient Aliens and all that stuff, and it seems like we're with Hollywood, we're being groomed into a lot of things, and they're just kind of slowly indoctrinating us into all this stuff. Do you think there'll ever be a point in the near future where it will come out and say, hey, you know what, these UFOs are real, extraterrestrials are real? Will it ever come to that, or will it just be a sudden something that'll just boom happen? Will the government eventually say, yes, they are real and they've been here?
Oh, I think that they will be forced to do that, and the only reason they haven't done that is that it wouldn't make the timing for what they want to do on a global basis. Look, behind the scenes, the majority of people that run countries know that there's something up in that department, but they don't know the inner workings of it, being a great deception. If you try to convince the leaders of various countries of the world to do what you want, probably 99% of them could be made to agree on a logical one-world government. It's the people that count, because the people really put their leaders in power and keep them there. So all of this has to be a play, as I've said before, to gain the dependence of the peoples of the earth, no matter what religion or what culture, what political point of view they have, to gain their dependence on a one-world order set up by beings that obviously know how to do it. Whether it'll be a press announcement or whether it'll just be they are here type thing, which is really quite impressive, I don't know. I've been out of the group, fortunately, for nearly 30 years or more, but that's how I think it will happen.
Stan, I appreciate you, and I want to say this, and I don't want to embarrass you here. There are a lot of people out there that I call eggheads. They're guys that sit around, they think, and then just when they kind of want to come up with knowledge so that they can profit from it. When I look at your website, I look at a very cohesive website. Yes, you have products on there, and you even are good enough to share other people's products because your goal is to edify and educate the body. But when I look at that, I'm not inundated by one ad after another. What I see is nonstop information, edification, encouragement, and enlightenment, and I want to give you props for that.
Well, thank you very much, but I hope we pass most of that over to Holly, who gets up 6 days a week at 4:30 and starts putting that all together. She's just a miracle in that department.
Well, that just tells me that you're doing this. Yeah, we're doing. Well, I hope you're breathing. That just means you're doing it for the right reasons, and I appreciate for that. God bless you, brother. Thank you for taking time tonight.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye now.